Calendar? Calendar? Let's go calendar. Yeah.
Heddiw daeth newyddion da, seren Bethlem dirion der, daeth i'r lawr o blith y ser. Mae creawdwr mawr y byd, mae'n cynhaliwr oll I gyd, mae iachawdwr dynol ryw, heddiw gyda ni yn byw. Henffych I ti fore cyn, bore prynedigaeth dyn, caned holl Jerusalem, ganed Christ Bethlehem.
Okay, James is in Estonia. I left at the butt crack of dawn this morning, or even before then. It was like 3 in the morning he left. I didn't even hear him leave. Just he and his mate are just gonna go there for Christmas markets. Which, I mean, like, is weird, but I'm not mad at it. You know, like, I've been to Estonia. It was delightful. They're also gonna do that ferry thing to Finland just to have a look. So, you know, I'm happy for them. I want them to live their lives. But here at the house, while they're gone, it's gonna be girls' night all night, every night. What? Me and the spud hanging out until like Monday, Sunday night, something like that. Yeah, we're gonna stay up super late. Okay, at least 10 o'clock. Wild. Okay, we are gonna do some crazy stuff. We're gonna eat some snack. We're gonna leave our clothes on the floor, which he hates. You know, he's always tidying things, moving things around. Like, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have something, I'm gonna put it somewhere, and it's gonna be there when I want to get it back. It's not gonna have moved in that time. Also, like, I'm not sure yet. Okay, I don't know how wild we want to be, but we might touch the thermostat. What? Oh, touch it. Touching the thermostat. It's gonna be amazing. The only downside is, though, that as a team, James and I work together to do some stuff, and he does actually do stuff in the house, which I have to do. Like, I have to walk the dog, I have to feed her, I have to, like, make sure she's gone out, like, that sort of crap, you know. Like, I suddenly have, like, another dependent to look after. So I'm gonna walk her now, but because it's cold outside, because I am who I am. Our walk, we're just gonna go to Nero. We're gonna go to Nero. We're gonna have a sit down chill. We're gonna have a snack. Okay, and if there's not like a full walk, I feel like the snack is going to convince Maisie that she do not care, that she is excited for the Nero anyway, and also will make her feel like she's been for a walk. So let's do that. Also on the agenda for today, we're gonna talk top 10 fave books of 2023. What? Crazy. Okay, and also I've been thinking about this list now. Okay, I've come up with a list, and now I'm thinking, like, stay with me here. Okay, like, I'm a visionary. Okay, keep up. I'm thinking one day, today, obviously, top 10 books of 2023. Next day, tomorrow maybe, top 10 graphic novels of 2023, because I've read a lot of graphic novels. Okay, then, here's where it gets wild. Next day after that, top 10 worst books of 2023, because damn, I've read some stinkers and I want to have a rant. Okay, and as I was going through them looking for like the best books or whatever, I was like, oh, that one was shit. That one was shit. So we'll do a top 10 of that. And then further on from that, I'm thinking we'll do a top 5 best series list. Okay, because I've read a lot of series this year, more I think than usual. And I don't want to put them in my top 10 list, you know, so it'll be like one book that's part of like 10 books. I don't want to put, you know, 10 books in as my favorites, because that's my whole top 10 list, you know, and I don't want to just put one randomly in because one's not particularly better than the others. Like, as a whole, that's how it's good, you know, all of them together. So I think they need a separate bit. Okay, so top 10 fave books, top 10 graphic novels, top 10 worst books, and then top 5 series. That's going to be our spread. First installation comes today after I get a coffee. Also, I just shitting remembered, your girl has a Welsh class today for 2 hours, smack in the day. That's going to put a whole huge hell of a damper on my whole plan. Unless I say I'm sick and I can't go. But I did that last time when I was busy. Oh, there's no time. No time to live my life. No time for my hobbies. No time to work. No time to sit in Nero for like all day with the dog. I'm just so depressed.
We've got so much custard now, we're literally just filling it with mince pies and custard. It's even worse.
They're so lovely, warmed up. Like this should be. Oh, it's amazing formation.
I'll make you better over there. Yeah.
Right, Jules?
I'll sit down there.
Dwi ddim yn gyrru i'r gwaith, dwi ddim yn defnyddio'r car I fynd i'r gwaith. Iawn? Dwi'n hoffi defnyddio'r car I fynd i'r dre, achos...
Okay, are you ready? 10 best books of 2023 as decided by me. Okay, my favorite books of 2023, not including books as part of a wider series, you know, like a trilogy, whatever. Okay, fine, but like books, I'm talking about ones that have like 10, 15, 20 books as part of their series. I've taken them out, we'll talk about them later. Okay, and it's for the best because I had a hard time paring it down to 10 anyway, so this helped a bit by separating it out. The ones I'm going to say, I could not decide, you know, which was better than the other. Okay, it was a hard year to sort of pare it down and decide which were the best. So like, just because number one is number one on the list doesn't mean it's number one in my heart. Okay, if you know what I mean. Like, it's in no particular order. So as I was going through them, I'm trying to remember, you know, like how I felt, like what I said, like the passion at the time of reading it. I went back and I looked at the videos that I've done about them, and I was like, actually, this captures it fine. Okay, so in a change from last year, I think I'm going to put in snippets. I'm going to give you clips of what I've talked about throughout the year to be like a sort of little mini booktube review as well. I'll sort of snip in what I said about it at the time that I read it. Okay, some of them I didn't really talk a lot about on booktube previously. I think it's like 3 or 4 of them, or ones I read recently, so I'll have to just talk about them now. But quite a lot of them I've raved about them on the vids before, so we'll just recap. Number 1 is actually a gift I got from Karen at Roving Reader when she came to visit me in Cardiff over the summer. And I read it for Shorty September because it's quite short. I love a shorty. Like, loads of the ones on my list are a shorty because I just love a shorty. It is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig. Okay, I finished it and I love the crap out of that. It was super good. 5 stars. Like, it's not just a sort of post-apocalyptic, like, society collapse story. It's also a bit of a creature feature. It's got like old school native monster legend aspects, which did not see coming, but I fully appreciated. And it's a bit like the Blue Book of Nebo, which I also loved, where the narrators, like the people who are telling the story, are so remote and sort of removed from everyone that they don't actually know what has happened. They just know some sort of cataclysm has befallen humanity. And then the books, like both that one and this book, end, like, no spoilers, but you never really find out what it is that's happened. Okay, you just know that lights have gone down, communication has gone dark, the world has collapsed, basically, and you're just like getting on the best you can with what you have. They do get like a bit of a glimpse of sort of the real chaos and everything when 2 teenage members of the community who were away in like a slightly larger city in Canada for school come home having seen some shit. Like, they're lucky to be there. Like, their escape from the city was like by the skin of their teeth. But otherwise, the sort of people in the community, they're sort of just living their lives, and the only sort of glimpses they get of what's going on outside are when sort of refugees sort of show up, like people sort of from outside the community who stumble upon their community, you know, for refuge, like looking for like food and shelter and stuff. I don't want to say anymore, I don't want to spoil it, but it is also a Wendigo story. Like the Wendigo monster dude, who is he always like turns into this monster guy who like kills and eats people, and he starts out as just like a normal person who is sort of corrupted by the worst parts of humanity, like, you know, like greed and lust and like, you know, just savagery and hatred like overtakes him and turns him into a monster, and he just eats people like that. And there is an element of that in this, which I fully enjoyed. Okay, number 2, I actually did like a mini review, like a sort of 90-second review spot about it for Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. Like he was doing a thing with a bunch of other channels to do with miserable books we love. And like he was like, oh, is there a miserable book you've read that you really loved? And I was like, I've got the one just for you, so I'm going to show you that now. It is The Blue Book of Nebo by Manon Steffan Ross. I 100% recommend The Blue Book of Nebo by Manon Steffan Ross, but only if you're in an emotionally stable place. If you're on the brink, don't read it. This was written in the Welsh language first of all, and the author translated it herself into English. It's about a mother, her 14-year-old son, and her 2-year-old daughter trying to make it in North Wales after a nuclear apocalypse. They spend their days gardening, hunting, going through other people's abandoned homes looking for crap, including books, because they love to read. They also, in the evenings, write in their personal journal their history of their family, called The Blue Book of Nebo. The title is a play on both ancient Welsh texts with names like the Black Book of Carmarthen, and also on notoriously hated blue books that the government in London in the 1800s used to portray Welsh people as uncivilized and illiterate. Manon Steffan Ross writes beautifully and insightfully about things like the mother coming to the realization that she prefers life after the apocalypse because it means more, it's slower, it's more beautiful. About her son as well reading books about the times before and wondering about things like why people used to pass each other in the road and never actually acknowledge each other's presence. And also in a very Welsh way captures this idea that language and history and literature are just as important lifelines as food. Absolutely loved it, but holy crap, it's sad. Like Dead Kids and Bunnies sad. Like if you have a problem with Dead Kids and Bunnies, you should 100% not read this book because it will break you in half. If you need a good, strong, beautiful cry, this is the book for you. Okay, number 3, I read for my Seattle Public Library like adult book bingo for the summer project. I do it every year and I'm not ashamed, okay? I will continue to do that every year, where you sort of black out a bingo board. Anyway, I read it for that in the summer, and it is Hotel Silence by Auður Ólafsdóttir, which I always have to say slow because I find it's a bit of a mouthful. But it was written originally in Icelandic and translated into English, and I love this author. I read another one by this author called Miss Iceland in short of September last year. Loved it. Okay, I'm gonna cut across myself just quickly here. It's me coming to you from the future. I could have sworn that I did a booktube video for this book at some point and I didn't. I can't believe that because I loved it. I think I only did an Instagram review, so now I have to say about it now, but it's fine. So it's about an Icelandic guy. He's middle-aged, he's divorced, his mother has dementia, he has a daughter and he loves his daughter, but he's just found out that his daughter's not biologically his. So, you know, he loves her, he doesn't regret that time, but he's like feeling disconnected from things. So he decides that he's gonna off himself. Trigger warning for suicide on this one, I apologize. But then he realizes that if he offs himself at home, the person that's going to find him is his daughter, and he's horrified by that. So he's like, okay, what I need to do is I'm going to go to somewhere that's a bit dangerous, okay, maybe like a war-torn place or like a part that's like a war zone or whatever, where I can off myself there and or just die by misadventure, you know, because it's a bit dangerous. So he clears up all his house and everything, sorts his will out, you know, sells all his crap, gives up his flat, goes to this hotel in a place where they don't sort of like mention what it is. They don't give it a name. That's like a real sort of named place. But it reminds me of Nagorno-Karabakh. My husband and I went here years and years ago, sort of between fighting bouts. Like it's just kicked off there now again. By the time we went, it was sort of like a peaceful bit between fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Armenia and Azerbaijan have been fighting over that bit of land for donkey's ages, and like you could see everything around, like you could see the remnants of fighting, you know, like destroyed buildings that hadn't been rebuilt because the people who own that land haven't come back from their exiled, you know, new countries yet. people sort of trying to rebuild and everything, and a sort of like can-do, sort of get on with life, sort of cheerful spirit amongst ruins, like this sort of vibe. So he goes to this place and he stays at this hotel, and this family of these 2 adult kids are trying to get the family's hotel back up and running, but they don't have any skills, you know, they're really young, the war's been going on a really long time, like supply lines are busted, they can't get things in, they can't get tools, they don't have any ability, you know, no knowledge for how to fix things, blah blah. So when he gets there, all he's got with him is 1 extra spare shirt and a drill, and some tools, like in case he needs to like put up a rope or something like really grim like that. But he's a handyman, so he knows how to do it, and he knows like a lot of skills like that. And when he gets there, he basically discovers that he's the king of everything, like a guy with handyman knowledge and tools in like a war-torn area is the king of everything. And he just like goes around being ridiculously useful to everyone, you know, like he's in demand, like, can you do this for me, can you do this for me, can you do this for me, and he's just like talking to everyone, and everyone's like, oh my god, I love you, I'm so glad you're here, blah blah blah. And obviously this has an effect on now his desire to potentially off himself, like, hey, the desire is less now. I'll leave it at that. But so good, like really interesting and uplifting, like not in a cheesy way. This isn't like, you know, a Hallmark back to school special, you know, like even though it seems like that when I'm talking about it, it's uplifting in like a, you know, a non-cheesy way. Okay, number 4, I also read for sure September, and I remember, even though it was September, it was one of like the hottest days of the year for some freak reason, and I had to go running because I was still training for this half marathon, and I had the audiobook of this book, and I was running with this audiobook, and it was hot, and I hated running, and the audiobook was terrible because I think the person who reads it is the actual author, you know, which is good, like, you know, that's great that you've written this beautiful book, but also maybe you should, you know, hire a professional performer to do the actual performing of your book, because like that's not your skill set, okay? But then I was like no, ended it. I like cut my run short. I like binned this audiobook, like it's terrible, and just went to the actual physical like reading book, and it was lovely. After I binned that crap audiobook and started reading the actual physical book that I had from the library, fell in love with it. It was lovely, and I did a bit of it here. Hiya, me again. Just to say the name of this book, which I didn't say to you earlier, is Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. Caleb Azumah Nelson, I really like him as an author. I really like his style. It's really sort of elegant and like poetic and thoughtful and lovely, and it is about love, like passionate love, and like more about how can you properly love someone. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you allow yourself to be in that kind of a vulnerable place, to sort of give all of yourself to someone and let someone see all of who you are, and to trust that they're going to see all of who you are and, you know, be kind with it, you know, take all of who you are and still sort of want to be with you. And I guess sort of about as well what stands in the way of that, like what stands in the way of you being able to be that vulnerable with someone, or like to make them aware of that, of your feeling, you know, to sort of like properly communicate and express your love for someone and your desire to be that way with them. And that those things standing in the way can often be like trauma, or, you know, injustice, or, you know, your own mental state, mental health. In the book, the main character, I don't think he has a name. I think he doesn't have a name. I'll check on it. But I mean, he has a name, but I feel like we don't know his name. Like, I'll look on it, and maybe I missed it. Like, the audiobook was hard to follow. Maybe he does have a name, and I don't know what it is. But he sort of talks a bit about sort of just the daily trauma of being black in London, sort of like all the different kinds of injustices and things that he has to deal with. And I think there's sort of like themes and stuff as well, like underpinning everything here about sort of like black masculinity and sort of how that stands in the way of you expressing yourself and giving yourself and being vulnerable and stuff like that. And that is gorgeous. I love that. The author, Caleb Azumah Nelson, he did like an interview as well where he said like the mind state he was in when he first wrote this book. He said loads of his family had died the year before he wrote this, and he was like looking for an outlet for his grief, or he was like not an outlet so much as like trying to understand his grief, trying to sort of work through his feelings and like the feelings of humanity, really, to sort of understand where it comes from, this grief, you know, and sort of help him cope with it. And I love that. I think that's really beautiful. But I swear to God, none of that was coming through in the audiobook. Okay, number 5. Like, I was wondering how many sort of like when you do your list, you're sort of like, oh, are there too many like whimsical ones in here, or too many like really serious ones? You know, you want it to reflect your year, your sort of like review of your books. So I try to get like, you know, some serious ones and some whimsical ones to sort of, I don't know, really cover what made me happy in my reading throughout the year. So in a whimsical note, okay, we're going with Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen. I don't want to hear any crap about it because I have no regrets. Anyway, this one is super fun. I think it's officially horror, right? But it's like comedic horror, and the horror parts aren't very horror-y. I would say it's just fun and funny. And it's based on the show The Bachelor, okay? You know that show where you've got one guy and he's got like 10 women, and he's got to, over the course of the season for the show, like each episode, pick one of the women to vote off. And then by the end of the show, in total, he like dates that person, like he's trying to pick one person. So in the book, we're at the stage where there's 4 women left. But they make a big deal of how this, like, the heyday of the show was 20 years ago. So, like, the production value and, like, the costs they can use, the resources they have to sort of run the show are lacking. And now, on location, they're on an island. But it's not like, you know, Greece or Spain or Jamaica or, like, a beautiful island. It's just basically in the Pacific Northwest, sort of like a quick, you know, hop from Seattle. And it's known for natural beauty and hiking and things like that. And also, I think for gay tourism, or sort of like lesbian hiking and things like that, it's been known for. But in the past, in the 90s, like 2 or 3 hikers like went missing or were murdered or something like that. There was some sort of incident which took a hit to the tourism. And now this show is like filming with their last sort of 4 women left and the guy who's supposed to pick them. And you get a view from all of the people involved. So all 4 of the women, they get their own chapters to sort of say their own narration from their own minds, which is really interesting because they're all quite different people and they're good characters. But the main thing is that there's something in the woods. What's in the woods? I don't know. Could it be that this, as the home of Sasquatch, means that there is an actual Bigfoot in the woods? Dun, dun, dun. I'm not going to give it away. I'm not going to be like that person and like spoil it for you. But I'm gonna leave it there. It's brilliant. It's really funny. Like, you know, Maisie has to leave right now. Right now! Okay, so the next one I read for Non-Fiction November. So I did talk about it briefly already in Vlogmas, just really quickly, when I did a recap of my November and October reading. And I think even though loads of the ones that I read in Non-Fiction November were amazing and I loved them, this is the only one that made it into my top 10. And it is Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry. And it was on my holds list, this book, for ages. And I think it was literally the day my hold came up for this book that I found out Matthew Perry had died. And it had been on my holds list for ages. Like, I never even thought when I put that book on my holds that there would be a time when I was reading it knowing that there's never going to be any more to the story. Like, this is the end. It's finito. Like, there's never going to be, you know, an afterword written by him for the republishing of this book 20 years from now, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's never going to progress beyond what it is. Just the words that are there now, that's the end. That's all you get. You know, there's no part 2. But it's really gorgeous, like, how he wrote about it. And, like, he explains so beautifully and passionately and, like, heartbreakingly about, like, basically his addictions. Like, this beast on his back, like this monster chasing him through his life, and he just wants to live his life. He's like a really normal guy, a really normal house, like a really normal family, you know, with like really normal wants and stuff. But he's hindered at every point in his life in his pursuit for, like, you know, happiness and contentment or whatever by, you know, pills addiction, drink addiction, you know, just various like other drug addictions. And he talks quite a lot about Friends and his like co-stars in Friends and how he felt about them and like the lovely relationship they had with each other. But also he sort of wrote about how his addiction affected the filming of the show. And I sort of went back and watched loads of the episodes again on Netflix. And he had this one where it was them in the beach house. There's like a season ender and then a season opener, and it's the one where Bonnie, the girlfriend or whatever, like shaves her head because Rachel's like, you should shave your head, and she's like, really? And she's like, yeah, you should shave it, because she's like jealous of her and wants her to be hideous. So anyway, the season ender of it, they're at the beach house, and Matthew Perry is like super skinny. He's like, you know, emaciated, skinny. He said he's never been that skinny in his life. And then it goes to the season opener of the next season where they're still at the beach house. It's still continuing on. And he's like plumped up more. Basically, he was on the pills in the last episode of the other one, and then went to rehab, got some help, sorted himself out a bit, you know, and then came back and was good for a while. But he said loads of those things where he would be good for a while, you know, and he'd feel really good, but it was only ever temporary. He always relapsed, just based on sort of little things that would happen, like little setbacks in life would just turn him straight back to the addiction. And it was heartbreaking. And like knowing as well now that he died like in a pool or something, in a like swimming. I don't know anything about it. I don't think anyone does yet, but like, you know, was it just addiction? Was he just high as F and then drowned? That's awful. Or even more awful is, you know, did he just like decide that's how he wants to go? Did he do it to himself on purpose? You know what I mean? You don't know. Ugh, also heartbreaking. Anyway, that was a lovely book and it just made me feel so sad. Okay, the next one I also read in short of September. And it was a bit of a sleeper hit for me. Like, I didn't think that it was going to be very good. It was on my shelf for absolutely ages. But I think I originally heard of it from NPR Book Concierge last year or something like that. Anyway, I loved it. The name of this one, if you're wondering, is Below by Laurel Hightower. This is apparently a book about Mothman, which is like a southern legend, like this like creature. And I am loving it. Like, I think some things could have been explained more, you know, like some of the aspects of it could have been given sort of more detail and more wrap up without sort of, you know, losing any of the mystery of the book. But, you know, very minor situation, like, you know, doesn't really detract from the awesomeness of the book that much. Like, the main shock of this book for me, and like no spoilers, I promise, 0 spoilers. Okay, we're just kind of a light chat about like my situation in regards to this book. All of the reviews and blurbs and, you know, publishing information, everything about this book had suggested to me before I read it that it's just like your everyday sort of crappy creature feature. Do you know what I mean? Like a sort of shallow, like, you know, jump scare, gore type sort of 80s movie creature feature. And even afterwards, sort of after reading it, and then going back through like forums and sort of like vlogs and stuff about it, no one was really talking about anything to do with like a deeper meaning in the book or like a deeper theme or a stronger theme of the book besides just it being a creature feature. And I find that really strange because, okay, yeah, it's a creature feature and it's like a bit creepy and a bit scary and like, holy shit, Laurel Hightower's the queen of a vibe, okay? But the main thing that hit me really hard about this book is what it says about this woman's life in relation to the men in her life and in her society, and you know how her whole life has been lived sort of as the daughter of all men. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, every man in her life, whether it's her dad or her ex-husband or just men on the road or whatever, sort of don't trust her to be her own human and to make her own decisions and be an equal in society. She's like the daughter of everyone. Like, she must be protected and scolded and not trusted and, you know, questioned and guided at all points, you know. And yet, this is a brilliant creature feature and it was so creepy and I loved the writing and I loved everything about it. But the thing that I loved most was this, this underground sort of message of this woman who's just realized that that's her life and she's fucking had enough of it. Do you know what I mean? Why is no one talking about that? Did that hit no one else really hard? Or is it just me? Just super relatable for just me? Like, that can't be true. Anyway, loved the fuck out of this one. Okay, number 8. I can't find where I've talked about this at all on BookTube, which is crazy because I feel like I've been talking about it all year and telling people to read it because it's amazing. It is Demon Copperhead by Barbie Kingsolver. So I know loads of people have said this is an amazing book and people have been talking about it on BookTube loads, but I'm still going to talk about it because it's amazing and you should definitely read it if you haven't read it. So I originally started reading it for Hay Festival because I had tickets to see Barbara Kingsolver do a talk about her book and she was amazing. She's such a cool person. I want to hang out with her. So she was just talking about how she had the idea for the book. She was in this hotel in London that Charles Dickens was in when he had the idea for David Copperfield, the book that it's based on. And she was sort of like sitting there looking out, thinking about what he was thinking about, you know, and she's like getting vibes off it from like, there's these people that are the poorest and, you know, the most desperate and struggling the most, and people not only pretend like they don't see them, you know, and pretend like, you know, they're not to be helped or I can't help them or whatever, but when they do see them, they sort of vilify them for how desperate they are and how poor they are. And she was sort of thinking, oh, what he wants to do is he just wants to highlight that hypocrisy and sort of bring light to this issue that could be helped if people just changed their minds about this and decided that they wanted to help instead of hinder or ignore. And she was like, oh, what are those people in our society now? And she thought about the people of Appalachia, sort of where she lives, how they're some of the poorest people in America, you know, the United States of America, you know, what is it, richest country on earth, or one of the richest countries on earth, where you can have so many rich people and such disgusting wealth, but you also have the people of Appalachia, which are bitterly struggling people. Do you know what I mean? And also she wanted to highlight this sort of opioid epidemic that they're having at the minute, which is in quite a lot of places in America, but it has hit Appalachia particularly hard, and how it's not actually particularly the fault of the people that are addicted to these opioids. A lot of the time it was caused by doctors, like influenced by big pharma or whatever, readily giving out opioids to people as pain medication, and then, you know, the patient not realizing that it's going to completely mess up their lives and change their brain chemistry and make them feel like if they don't have it all the time every day that they're dying. You know, they're like, oh, okay, thanks doc, you know, oh, thanks for this pain relief, thinking it's completely fine. And it just sort of like hit the community like a speeding truck. And loads of things that she was saying about sort of how it's one of the last things that Americans are allowed to be prejudiced against, you know, sort of openly prejudiced against. People who think that, you know, they're like, oh, I would never say anything racist, I would never say anything against about, you know, communities that are unique in their culture, I would never, you know, want to be hurtful in what I say, blah, 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 but then readily turn around and call things that are falling apart hillbilly things. And as she said it, I was like, holy crap. I've called things hillbilly things. I didn't really think about it. I remember my mom used to say houses that keep their Christmas lights up all year are hillbilly houses, and I would have just laughed at that, like, oh, that's silly, you know. Or like my dad used to say things like, if you travel from one place to another place with your stuff in a plastic bag instead of a suitcase, that's hillbilly luggage. But obviously that's incredibly hurtful. That's a horrible thing to say. Like, it's basically the N-word for people in Appalachia, and I'm disgusted with myself that I used to say that. I haven't said it since. Well, I just did just now, obviously, to let you know what the word is so that you can also stop saying it. But anyway, I feel like it's so intensely changed my view of America and like of communities in general, like poor communities in general. Like, I think it's changed my life. And like, I don't want to be dramatic about it, but I think that's why she's won the Pulitzer and all this sort of stuff, because so many people feel so impacted by her work. Okay, second to last one. Like, I feel like this is a long as F video, and I'm really sorry about that, but I'm going to put in chapters so you can jump so that it's not like a huge long thing all at once. Okay, number 9. I know that this one is not a popular one, okay? Like, I think Kieran at KD Books, like, his review of it, he just annihilated it, and he was laughing the whole time, like, are you kidding me? That's stupid! Like, he was very animated in thinking that this book was dumb. And that's fair. It has some cheesy elements, I won't, like, lie to you, okay? But sometimes a bit of cheesiness just works. Sometimes you weren't expecting it to be that sort of cheesy and it just pops out, and sometimes, you know, somehow it's worked and is appreciated there, okay? Oh, this one's Drift by Caryl Lewis. Sorry, I didn't even say the book. Number 9, Drift by Caryl Lewis. It was basically this girl and her brother. They live in this sort of remote, rural, sort of coastal Welsh community, and there's something up with the sister, and the brother's sort of like constantly going away for work. He like works on a ship and he works in docks and blah blah, and he's also got like, you know, a girl that he sees, so he goes away a lot. But when he leaves his sister behind, he leaves her behind heavily medicated, because there's something up with the sister that frightens him, and we don't know what it is. Is it, I don't know, like erratic behavior, or you don't know. You find out it's something like really cool, like supernaturally cool to do with the ocean. I don't want to like give it away, but basically there's this other guy as well. He's from Syria and he's been taken prisoner for, like, you find out later, but you're sort of in the dark for most of the book, sort of like thinking, oh, you know, you're led to believe maybe it's sort of terrorism related or whatever, or sort of like war related. Anyway, he's being kept at this military base prison near to this community in Wales, this coastal community. And they transport him, they try to transport him from like one prison to another prison or something like that, and something goes wrong, there's like a landslide or whatever, and he escapes. And he makes his way to this cottage with this woman in it, and she helps him. And like, so I'm gonna leave it there. But I loved it. I thought it was brilliant, so good. And I think, okay, loads of people said it was too cheesy. They gave it like really like cheesy 2-star reviews, like this is not good. But I disagree, okay? Who doesn't love a bit of cheesy nothingness every once in a while? And I didn't even think it was that cheesy. I thought it was very good. So, you know, I say do it. Okay, number 10. We've made it, friends. This one is another one that I read in Shorty September and really loved. And it is 3 Elegies for Kosovo by Ismail Kadare. This one, I think, wouldn't be for everyone. I think a lot of what I loved about it is to do with it being in the Balkans, that part of the world. I've always been fascinated by the Balkans. I really love it. Also, I'm a bit of a history nerd, and I love to research things while I'm reading. You know, I had to look at, like, you know, medieval maps of the Balkans and stuff like that to sort of figure out what was going on. If you're not into that, maybe this isn't for you, but if you are, get on it, friends. It's so good. Okay, roughly premise, right? I think it's like 3 short stories, or like 3 short snippets of Kosovo's history, starting in 1389, okay, with sort of a battle against the Ottoman Empire, and ending in 1989 with Slobodan Milosevic and all that shiz. We've got our 2 minstrel guys here now, and I feel like it's like really getting to the heartbreaking point that the author's trying to sort of say. These 2 minstrels, they've seen the battle go sour, you know, they've watched it all fall apart and they're defeated, but they survived and they're sort of fleeing now, but there's nowhere really to go because their homeland has been taken over. They're like refugees basically, and they've sort of collapsed in a heap and they're talking and like they're despairing and stuff, and they've said, we ourselves have brought this disaster upon our heads, my brother. We've been fighting and slaughtering each other for so many years over Kosovo, and now Kosovo has fallen to others. He keeps sort of saying things like, you know, this is madness, you know. And then sort of the very end of that chapter says, the Serbs' eyes were filled with the same tragic lament. Both men were prisoners, tied to each other by ancient chains, which they could not and did not want to break. Basically linking, I guess, like I haven't gotten to the modern bit, like the part that takes place in the 80s yet, but sort of linking sort of what was going on at the time with sort of Slobodan Milosevic and everything to conflict between Serbia and Albania that's ancient and has been going on for hundreds of years, and how they're locked in this curse with each other and neither of them either know how to get out of it or even want to get out of it, like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, they sort of revert to this as their native culture and their native traditions and everything to be in opposition to the other. Do you know what I mean? Which is really interesting. Okay, we've made it. We made it to the end, friends. If you've made it all the way through to this part, I thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Please talk to me about your top 10 as well. So if you're going to do a video on your top 10, please tell me about that and link me into it below, because I definitely want to watch that. If you don't have a channel or you don't want to do like a video or whatever, please just like, you know, give it a think. Okay, and then give me a comment maybe with like the 10 below. You don't even have to say anything about them because I'll just Google the crap out of those while I'm stuck at my parents' house in January. I 100% want everyone's input on the 10 best. If you've read my ones as well and enjoyed them or didn't enjoy them, I also feel like that's really good discussion that we should have promptly. Unless you want to come at me for really liking Drift, because I feel like I'm closed off to that. I'm kidding. You can come at me, it's fine. But like only mildly because I'm sensitive. Okay, this is really long. I have to cut it off here. I have to go get my kid from school. If you have any questions, anything, please let me know. And we'll do fave graphic novels tomorrow, shall we? That'll be our plan. Okay, bye.